everyone, and welcome to another post-game interview for the Can You Survive Charity Event 2021. I am your guest host for today, and the host of Can You Survive, Brandon, and I am here with the runner-up from Season 1, Justin.
Hey, Brandon, how you doing? It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. I'm excited to take a deep dive into your game because I don't know what was happening as opposed to Surviving Maine, where we did know what was happening because we watched the episode. So I'm excited to see what was going down because a lot of people have talked about you too. So, what made you apply in the first place?
I had played in Surviving Maine, obviously, with you, the season where you won, and I had such a good time that when I found out that you were hosting one, it wasn't even a thought. It was just, I'm going to try and do this. So I applied immediately, and I'm glad I got chosen. And it being for charity was another big factor because it was um, something that had purpose. It made it feel like it was more than just a weekend outing, which is great too. But when it has such purpose, like being for charity, it just makes it extra special.
Cool. So what changed about your strategy after playing Surviving Maine? You kind of had one game under your belt. So coming into this one, yeah, how did your pregame strategy differ?
Um, my pre-game strategy, I came in knowing that there was going to be potentially players that I had played with before in Surviving Maine. So I wanted to really deal with that and ensure anybody in the game that I wasn't too tight or close with certain people if they were there. I also wanted to be much more aware of the numbers and using numbers to my advantage and, preparing to be in the minority or the majority when I needed to. So I was very I'm what they call it Monday morning quarterbacking the last game that I played and trying not to make the same mistakes in this game.
Okay. Ultimately, do you feel like you played differently, or do you feel like you played similar to Surviving Maine?
I am a very like pushy player, so like I like to push the game in the direction that I want it to go in. I feel like I did that in Surviving Maine, and had I not been blindsided by two idols, I think I may have actually been able to even push that game further than I did. But I played pretty similarly, but with much more awareness of the dynamics in the other tribes and using people to my advantage, and that's something different that I did.
Okay. So ultimately there were four people from Surviving Maine. So you had to navigate that, but also one was on your tribe. So did any of them interest you in you like working with them? Because I know in your confessionals you were like, I'm gonna pull Sarah along as I can, but I don't want to work with her.
Yeah, I Oh, sorry. Yeah, I knew that playing in Surviving Maine was going to put a target on my back. So I was trying to play it off as being a beneficial attribute while at the same time being something that I'd be willing to turn on. So I sold the idea of if we ever make it to a merge, I can pull in these people from Surviving Maine potentially. But I also sold it as if you need me to prove my loyalty to you, I have no problem blindsiding any of these people. So I kind of played both ends of that. But yeah, I didn't have any intention, honestly, deep down of going very far with anybody just because I knew that that would put a target on either me or that person's back.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you threw Sarah under the bus a ton, but you also had a really fun rivalry, a quick rivalry with Emily, which we'll get to at that point. But that was a fun the round she left. But also it was funny, Emily, when she did her interview, she specifically mentioned that she would not want to play with you again. So as soon as she said that, I was like, well, they're both cast. So
Yeah.
it was so fun. um
Before you go on, I love all the people from Surviving Maine and this game. Me not wanting to play with them had to do with me getting further in the game. And when none
oh
of them
yeah,
made it to merge, I was very happy about that. I was upset because it was people that I was close to didn't make it. And I believe I would have got Sarah's vote had she stayed at merge. But I
yeah.
also was very happy that I was the only one that made it to the
Oh
merge
yeah, for sure. I mean, your target was huge.
already. Yeah.
The whole game, but like at the merge specifically, your target was huge. So had there been Sarah specifically, that would have been not
Yeah.
good.
No.
Um, so when I cast you, I wanted to put you with people who it would be more of a challenge for you, because in Surviving Maine you worked with like the alpha males, you worked with you know, as Jacqueline said, you worked with the alpha males. So I wanted to put you on a tribe with people that you wouldn't have worked with before. So when you first saw your tribe, what was your initial reaction?
When I first saw my tribe, I was a little bit nervous. I was one of the older players other than Liz. They were all very young and um, but I liked them all. I got along with them all. I mean, you can perceive in alpha male role might not get along with certain types of people, but I get along with everybody.
Mhm.
Um, my mother is openly homosexual. That does not bother me at all. Working with people like that, I get along with people of all types of life, walks of life. So it wasn't really a big deal. It wasn't as big of a deal as I think that you are attempting to make it to be. I actually got along great with everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I wanted it to make it a little bit challenging for you,
Mhm.
make you play with people different than previously. That was my goal.
I loved it. I loved it. I loved everybody on my tribe. Got
Yeah.
along well with everybody. Yep.
So you, as everyone has said, you kind of dominated the strategy talk. Did that start the first day? Were you immediately strategizing with people?
Um, my strategy when I play Survivor is I attempt to build a very strong team element. I want everybody to feel like they're part of that team until they can't be anymore. So the first day I was, whispering in people's ears, "Hey, look for an idol in here. I got you back." Like here we go, like team, 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 ooh, rah, rah. That was sort of my strategy, and that was my strategy in Surviving Maine as well. Like
Yeah.
as the numbers get down, you're a part of these numbers until you're not. But that's why I think I play the game differently. A lot of people are looking out for themselves, and I feel like I'm looking out for others and myself at the same time. And when you provide that, you're providing a different type of camaraderie that somebody that maybe only is looking out for themselves would get.
Okay. Now, did you have any alliances forming that first day?
Um,
Or who were you the closest to, I guess, that first day?
Immediately during the water challenge, we had to carry the cups of water and we were attached to somebody else. I was attached with Stephanie, and Stephanie said, "Hey, I've seen you play. I'd like to work with you." So immediately right then I was like, okay, Stephanie and I are going to get along. She's, openly and vocally announcing she wants to work with me. So I'm like, this is a good sign. She seems to be a type of person that could get a lot of people in her corner, and she obviously did throughout the game. So I said, this is a good person to align with. I kind of had small talk here and there with Barry and John and Albie as well, who ended up becoming my strongest ally, obviously. But yeah, I was getting along with everybody, Sarah as well. I was kind of downplaying Sarah, but at the same time, I wanted people to know that her and I had played in the game before. So I got along pretty much with everybody. I didn't talk a whole lot with Liz or Jackie about strategy, but they didn't talk, I don't believe, with anybody about
Right.
strategy.
Yeah, I think everyone has collectively said that they really didn't talk strategy with anybody.
Yeah.
Let's see. So that first day, I mean, your tribe won one challenge, you got second in the rest of them. So it wasn't like a terribly great start, but it wasn't Pink Tribe. Now I've said this to everyone, all the other blue people, but that fire making challenge, obviously it didn't go the way we planned, the way you planned. It was a mess. But I was very worried about your hands when you were trying to chop that piece of wood.
Yeah, I still have a visible scar here from that on my pinky.
Oh
Yeah,
god.
I was just going at it. I was trying to, man the piece to death because it just wasn't the axe wasn't working. But
Yeah.
it's a learning experience for you. It's a learning experience for the game to, make sure that all the pieces are the same, and it's not a big deal. It was a reward challenge, I believe. Or was it
Yeah.
an immunity challenge? Yeah,
It
it
was
was
a
a reward
reward
challenge.
challenge.
So it wasn't like, somebody's life in the game depended on it.
Right. Right. Um yeah. Mess. Oh well. So Sarah wants to know, did you have a final two with Albie at the beginning, or did it just end up working out that way?
I believe it was either the first night or the second morning. I sat down with Albie and Steph at the fire, and I said, this is my final three. You have my word on it. I may have even swore on my girlfriend's kid. Like, it was the final three, and I stuck to that to the end. So yes, we did have an alliance very early.
Okay.
But Albie was very quiet in the beginning. I was the first person, I believe, to approach him. He was picking raspberries, and I walked up to him and I said, "Hey, has anybody talked about working with you?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, I got you." And I was like, "Okay, I kind of want this person in my corner." Um, and I liked Albie just the way that he was personally. He was a teacher. There's a lot of things that I liked about him, and so he was on my radar early as an ally. Yes.
Now if the merge were, well, I'm skipping ahead, but had the merge worked out differently, would you have gone to the end with Albie and Stephanie?
I was going to the end with Albie and Stephanie. This game was for charity. I don't want to show my cards for potentially another game either. So I made that promise, and that's what I would have done. I would have gone with Stephanie and Albie. Like everybody says, I'm an alpha male. I'm not afraid to go with strong people, and I wanted one of those two people to win the game, and that's really what I want to do, or one of the three, me, her,
Right.
or Albie. So that's really what I want to do, and that's really what I would have done.
Okay, awesome. So let's see. We get to day 2. Now, Albie mentioned that you had idol paranoia, which makes sense because in surviving Maine, there were idols literally everywhere. And you had gotten one the first day, and it was the tribe idol. So, did you have idol paranoia? Were you always looking for idols? Were you telling people to look for idols? Walk through that.
I've never found an idol in either of the games that I've played. The first game I didn't really look too hard, and when I did find one, I put one on the shelter. Well, I guess I didn't find it; it was given to me. I put it on the shelter. That kind of goes back to the team building like thing that I had talked about, making everybody feel included. This game, I was looking for them. I wasn't like digging in the ground and running around at night or anything like that, but just looking around the challenges and in the bathroom and the typical places that people were all looking. Yeah, no, I just yeah, mediocre average looking for idols. I wasn't over the top. I didn't feel like or paranoid about them or anything.
Yeah. For some reason when you were talking, there's like a popular GIF from Survivor. It's of Courtney Yates from Survivor China, and Heroes versus Villain. She's mimicking Russell Hantz, and she's going. For some reason, when I asked you that question, that's what I was thinking of, was that GIF. So your tribe lost the first 2 challenges, the first 2 immunity challenges on the second day, and you voted out Jackie and Liz. I feel like they were pretty self-explanatory. I mean, Jackie was unanimous, or almost unanimous, and Liz was. But you always use Sarah's name as the throwaway vote to give to the people you were voting out. So walk me through that. Did Sarah know about that?
I believe that Sarah did, but we comforted her and let her know it was okay. I knew that Sarah, I could tell Sarah that I always knew I could reel Sarah back in if she got frustrated about something. Sarah had gone to exile. Liz didn't like Sarah. It just made sense. Why am I going to throw somebody else's name under the bus and have them, vote them? She's just the one that made sense. So that's why we did it. We were going to go Jackie first and lie to Liz. So that allowed me to get 2 people out of the way and put targets like on, 1, 2. So I knew that I was going to be a target. So I was like, I need to put targets everywhere else other than on me. So Jackie first, lie to Liz, that would Liz out second, and then go from there.
Okay. So a lot of people were wondering, or I've asked this to all the other blue members that made it to the final 6 of that original tribe. What would your plan would have been had you lost again?
John, without a doubt, would have been next. I like John, but he wasn't as tight as me and Albie and Steph were. And then I had Sarah. I knew I could use her as a vote in a swap or something like that. It would have been John, and then it probably would have had to been Sarah. I would have had to get the surviving main person out. But I had already started planting seeds about John having an idol. I was trying to also break up potentially Barry and John. I knew that they had a really good relationship. I knew that they had stayed the night together the night before because they had traveled from out of state. So I wanted to make sure that they didn't have both of their legs underneath them. So I would have targeted John, and I think that most of the people would have been and were on board with that as the next move.
Yeah, I mean, everyone pretty much has been unanimous, and it would have been John next. Now, a few mentioned that it was kind of like it was three pairs on this tribe. I know you were close with Albie and Steph, but a few people mentioned that it was Albie, Steph, you, Sarah, John, Barry, as like the perception of the tribe. Do you feel like that was true at that final six?
I mean, I think Sarah probably made it that perception that she was really close with me, but I don't think I ever was very vocally open about Sarah being my number one ally. I actually think it was probably quite the opposite. I mean, I like Sarah as a person, but Sarah is not somebody I want to really strategically work with because she tells people things that she probably shouldn't tell them. She doesn't tell people things that she probably should tell them. And she's very scatterbrained. I mean, it is what it is. That's the reality of it. But she's a good person and somebody that I knew would vote for me and vote with me far into the game. But she wasn't somebody that I really wanted to go too far with. I felt like it was more of a liability.
Okay.
And I talked to her about that when we went to Exile. And I'll get into what she said to me at Exile when we get there. And it's quite amusing.
So we get to the swap. I mean, you won the rest of the challenges before the swap, so it was pretty easy sailing from there. But then you get to the swap. What was your immediate plan once you found out who was on your tribe?
Okay, so the first thing I did when we swapped is I walked over to Angela and I said, right in front of everybody, we need to target green. They're winning everything. They have the numbers. Let's get them out. And she was, boom, right on board. I knew instantly that that's what they probably would want to do if they had any sort of logical, strategic gameplay. And I put it right on the table and I told her that's what we wanted to do. I got really tight with Angela. I felt like she was probably the more alpha person in that relationship between her and Waylon. And I believe that that's what was going on. So I got really tight with her, and Albie ended up getting really tight with Waylon. So it really worked out for my alliance there.
Awesome. Let's see. I guess my next question, how hard did you try to get Pink on your side? I guess you didn't really have to try that hard. No offense.
No, I walked right up and then I walked right up to her and I said, this is what we should do. And she was all about it.
Yeah. And no offense to Emily and Damien, but like, it doesn't sound like they tried very hard to get Pink.
Yeah, they were walking around still thinking they were the ones that were winning all the immunity challenges. Right. And they were the kings of the jungle. And I was like, I don't think so. You guys are done.
So your tribe, you tried to help the other tribe by sending a green to Exile so that they could vote a green out. But the next morning you found out that John was voted out and they lost the majority. So what were your thoughts when you saw that had all happened?
I kind of had an idea that was going to happen because I believe it was Barry was talking to Steph outside of the bathroom. I had gone with Barry to the bathroom, and Steph had mentioned that she was voting. They were thinking about voting for John, and Barry was, agreeing and solidifying that, saying, "Hey, yeah, that's an okay idea. We support you, whatever you've done." And then I walked into the conversation, and they said that, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, that's not a bad idea," because I was thinking, if they're in the minority there, then we'll be in the majority on New Green. Or was I New Green? Yeah, I was New Green.
Yeah.
So we would have been in the majority on New Green. So I was okay with it. We had already planned on targeting John anyway. Had he gone to immunity. I obviously wanted Steph safe. So from a numbers perspective on her tribe, it didn't really make sense. But for us on our side, it was definitely beneficial because it created the dynamic where Pink definitely couldn't turn on Blue at this point.
Right. Yeah. So it definitely helped you, Albie, and Barry. So you were like, well, it doesn't help the other tribe, but it's fine. So I feel like you had, from that point on, I feel like it was a pretty easy swap in terms of you making it through that phase of the game. However, there were a lot of fun moments that happened throughout that easy swap, starting with the Exile Island drama. So you were very openly trying to tell Sarah, Damien, take Damien, and then she chooses you, which I think was a terrible decision. But walk me through all of that.
So we knew that the merge was coming soon, and I wanted to solidify that my alliance made it to merge, and that alliance included Pink, every single one of them, because I knew that the other side, Blue and Pink, were in the minority. Katie had been voted off. So when Emily went to exile, I knew that Emily couldn't go again. And we had just won this challenge. And I wanted Sarah to send Damien so that on the next vote, no matter what, we could split the vote between Damien and Emily and then revote, which is what we ended up doing anyway. But yeah, I was very vocal about it because it didn't matter. If she would have sent Damien, it wouldn't have mattered because we would have lost. We could have, unless they had two idols, we could have just split the vote and voted one of them out, and I would have guaranteed, or we would have guaranteed our tribe, everybody goes to merge. So that was why I was so vocal and adamant about it. I didn't care. There was no need for tact there. There was no need for me to be secretive. It was send Damien and we're good to go. You know what I mean? So that's what I was doing.
Okay. So then you get to Exile Island with Sarah, and how does that pan out?
Well, I soon begin to realize that Sarah is being completely played by Ciara and her posse. She's convinced that there's this girl alliance going on, and she tells me there's a girl alliance, and I ask her, I look her in the face, and I say, "So where do I fit into this girl?" Oh yes, I did. I told after Sarah picked me, I said, "You fucked our game." I was pissed, but I got over it very quickly because you have to adapt to whatever the situation is. But yes, I did tell her that she fucked up our game. But when I went to exile, she told me there was a girl alliance, all girl alliance. So I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell does this doesn't benefit me, all girl alliance.
Right.
So I look at her and I say, where do I fit in this girl alliance? And you know what she says to me?
Oh,
she goes, well, you don't. I go, oh, I don't. Okay, well, guess what? Emily's now going instead of Damien. And I didn't tell her that, but this is where my mind's going. So yeah, that was very one. I knew that the girl alliance was probably bullshit, and Sierra was doing it to try and keep numbers because she was able to get rid of John and then Katie. So obviously there was no girl alliance really. But yeah, I couldn't believe it when Sarah said that I didn't fit in the girl alliance. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go along with that plan. So that was one of the key things that I took away from that, and that changed a lot of the people that I looked to potentially target later on, specifically Emily.
That actually, I mean, honestly, that conversation and that Exile Island decision affected a lot. Because as Sierra and Caitlin mentioned in their interview, that they were legit with the Girl Alliance until Sarah chose you to go to Exile Island, and because Sarah was really shady that round, and they thought she threw the challenge too. So they were fully in on that Girls Alliance idea until that, and then of course Sarah kind of ruining the chances of the Girls Alliance by telling you about it, and then you getting Emily out the round after, so that it doesn't even have traction at the merge. So yeah, I mean, that really did impact a lot of what could have happened in the game. So you get the clue for the idol, and you and Sarah are the first two people at Exile who don't get like a really, really vague clue. You get a very specific clue saying to use the kayak. So how did that whole situation happen?
See, I'm talking a lot of trash about Sarah, but I have so much fun when I'm with Sarah. Us looking for the idol was so much fun, even though we didn't find it. I don't think that our clue was clear about the kayak. I believe that the clue said that you could walk, run, or swim to find the idol.
It said you can use the kayak.
It said you can use the kayak. Okay, well that was that was stupid of us for not getting into it. We did pull apart the kayak. Even the kayak we weren't supposed to pull apart. We were ripping that apart and got a little bit. We got scolded for that. I did think to get into the kayak, but I was also thinking that we're playing Survivor right now. I was in the Marine Corps. Like, rule number one when you are sleeping and living outdoors is you do not get wet. If you get wet, you are done. So I didn't want to risk flipping the kayak or getting wet in the kayak or water coming into the kayak or anything like that. So I thought about taking the kayak out, but where we had just been scolded, I wanted to get away from the kayaks, and I also had no intention on getting wet in the game.
Yeah, makes sense. Then you ended up getting wet the last day anyway because it rained, but that's fine.
Yeah, and that's why that day was so miserable.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine what Steph and Katie had to go through in the previous game they played when it rained the whole weekend. I literally wouldn't be able to do it.
Very different.
So where did we leave off? So then we get to the double tribal council round, which we kind of referenced already with you getting Emily out. Now I've asked a lot of people who were on your tribe at that point why it was Emily over Damien, but I always kind of figured like Justin wanted Emily out at that point. So after your conversation with Sarah, was it clear to you that like Emily had to go at that point over Damien?
Yeah, absolutely. Damien, we had split the votes between Alan and Damien, I believe the round before, and Damien didn't play an idol. So I said, we're going to tie the vote and then we'll revote Emily here, just in case Emily does have an idol. We were very strategic in our voting. We always made sure that we were protecting each other from idols, and we always split the votes. We were always on point, and nobody messed up, thankfully. But yeah, I had no problem keeping Damien because we knew he didn't have an idol. So we said we'll split the votes, and then if Emily doesn't play one, we'll take out Emily. And that was because of the Girl Alliance vote from my perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
That challenge was so funny. Albie said that you wanted to target Emily first in the challenge, and
Yeah.
then no one else ended up doing it. So it was just you versus Emily. And then I was watching, I was right in front of you two, and then Emily knocks yours off, and it was one of the best moments of the whole weekend.
Oh yeah, she got me. She got me good, and I know why people like to root against me. You know what I mean? Like I understand the
Yeah.
perception. So it was a very funny and good moment, and I just took it as I took it with a grain of salt, and it was
Yeah.
funny and it was a good moment.
Yeah, for sure. So from Waylon and Angela's interview, they had a question. Who leaves? So let's say Damien gets exiled at Final 13, Emily wins immunity. What would your plan been had that situation happened?
Oh, that would have been such a terrible situation. That would have really caused some cracks, I think, in the tribe. Because I know Stephanie was very close with Barry, and Barry would have been the person that I would have had to target. We may have been able to go for Waylon, but I didn't want to piss off Angela at all, so I think it might have had to been Barry, but everybody would have had their own opinions there, so I don't know what it would have whittled down to.
Right. And then that would have probably sent Stephanie to work with Green at Merge too. So it would have been a mess.
Been good.
So we get to the merge. First of all, is there anything about your game that we missed at the swap that you want to talk about?
No, I just want to give a shout out to Alan. I think that Alan was a very personable person. I really wish I could have worked with Alan. Alan was kind of the total package. He had the social game. He was very wiry and athletic. And I wish I would have had an opportunity to work with him, but him being that way and not being on my set of numbers, I knew that he was definitely somebody I didn't want to be going up against. He asked me if he was being voted out when he was voted out, and I told him we were splitting the votes, but I told him if you have an idol, you should play it, because I didn't feel like Alan was the type of person that deserved to be lied to. Not that anybody deserves to be lied to, but I really wanted to be honest with Alan because he seemed like a really genuine person. Guy.
Now, do you feel like if he wasn't exiled that first night that it could have been different and someone else could have been voted out first?
No, I don't think so. I think that I think Pink was adamant on working with Blue to get out Green, and I think that everybody recognized that Alan was such a dangerous player.
Oh, okay. I meant over Damien and Emily, just in terms of the order they were voted out.
No, I would have wanted Alan gone. I want the strongest people that are in my alliance gone first. Typically
makes sense. So I feel like at the merge you were set up pretty well. I mean, Blue and Pink had a majority over Green. Unfortunately, Caitlin was medevac, so at that point you had a very good majority over Green. Now I did your confessional only after the merge, so I only know what you were thinking at that point. And I know you mentioned that you wanted to target Damien first. So what changed between when we did our confessional to when Ciara was voted out?
Well, originally I wanted to target Damien just because I knew it was an easy vote that we weren't going to be able to split, because I believe it was 6-4 once Caitlin left.
Yeah.
So I was like, we can't split here. We can't go 3-3. So we're going to have to target somebody that doesn't have an idol. And I knew that Damien didn't have an idol. But the night of the merge, I took a step back and I was very observant of what was going on. And Ciara, the first thing that she did when we merged, is she may not have noticed this, is she walked up to Albie and she said, "Hey, I played on a season of Sequester with you. And Albie is my best ally." So I'm like, well, this isn't going to fly. You know what I mean? And Ciara also had dominated puzzles. She had lured in Stephanie and some other people that she had worked with in this all girl alliance. So I was like, okay, she's clearly the ringleader here of this new, or of this tribe. So I definitely wanted her gone. And her and I would like to work with Ciara, but Ciara is the type of player I can never work with because I think that honestly, deep down, we play a very similar game. We're both, calculating numbers. We're both kind of the ringleader of our groups, vocally. So I knew that she had to go, and we were kind of like staring each other down at the campfire, and we kind of knew exactly what was going on. Um, so yeah, she had to go, and that was why she ended up being the first person to go.
Okay. Now Stephanie has a question in the comments.
So
How did you feel that she couldn't communicate with you right at the merge and tell you that she was with you?
I never really worried about Stephanie. She was giving me some weird vibes around merge, but I felt like when you play in a game for such a short period of time, that the initial bonds that you make with people, they usually have a lingering effect. So I felt pretty confident that Steph was going to go blue. I never was worried about green having the majority because I knew that pink was still with us. So it would have made sense for Stephanie to go with us on that side of the numbers.
Mhm.
I think that a big mistake that Ciara made and that the green made, well, they chose to split the vote between me and Albie. So now you didn't just piss people off. Like everybody knew that I was a target. Just keep the target on me. Why are you going to put a target now on Albie as well and risk, potentially pissing off Angela or Waylon or Staff or Barry? Like they don't know, who's aligned with who. So I think that that was a poor move by them. They potentially could have maybe made a move against someone like me at 9 or 7. But they targeted Albie along with me. And when you start targeting other people, you start rubbing people the wrong way. So I think that was a big mistake that hasn't been talked about, was splitting the vote between me and Albie on their first vote.
Yeah. They had they were very confident, I guess, that they had pink on their side, which
doesn't make any sense.
It didn't make sense why they would be confident that they had pink on their side, because just leading up to that point, there was no reason for pink to work with them. So yeah, it didn't really make sense why they would want to split the votes at that point, especially if you aren't like confident that you have the numbers. Because like I can understand that they might think they would have Steph just because she was playing both sides, but that would be the only person I could think that they would.
Yeah, and we had been working with Angela and Waylon. We had stayed with the night with in the swap tribe, so it didn't make sense for them to have that type of confidence.
Yeah. So going into the merge, I feel like you and Ciara. I put you and Ciara as probably the biggest threats going into the merge. And that kind of came to a head at that first vote. But then it all changed when we got to Touchy Subjects. I feel like after Touchy Subjects, your game, you went from the biggest threat to, I mean, not even close to the biggest threat. I feel like you went from someone everyone wants out to someone everyone wants to go with to the end because of what you were voted in Touchy Subjects. Now you won the challenge, so I guess it worked out for you and you made it to the end. But how much did you feel that change after Touchy Subjects of not
I love the fact that I was having a little bit of the target lifted from me with Touchy Subjects. I got most intimidating. So I don't know how an intimidating person can be disrespected, but I proved it when I won the golf challenge. So, but yeah, no, I didn't take that personally at all. I know that some people are strategically answering those questions. I was a little offended that people said that they least respected my game over Damien's, because Damien had been very open about not caring too much about the game.
Yeah.
But it actually really benefited me in a way. It didn't benefit me probably with the jury, but it did benefit me as far as getting and making it to the final 3. So
yeah,
I wasn't too bent out of shape about it. I did sit back a lot after that. I was very aware that people were perceiving me as being wrongly in charge of the game. But people can sit there and think in their brains that they're running the game. But when I'm sitting and vocalizing something and it continues to happen, that's, the reality of it. But no, I wasn't offended by any of the answers. It actually really helped me get further into the game because I was starting to get a little paranoid.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did make you get further. I know we talked about it before this stream started. Like, I fully expected you to be voted out at the same time you were in Surviving Maine. I thought if anyone was going to make a move against blue, that you would be the person that they make a move against. But yeah, Touchy Subjects definitely changed your trajectory.
Yep. I hate that. I hate that game. I hate that challenge, but it did work out for me this time. So
yeah.
yeah.
So we get to final 8, and this is when blue implodes. So Barry tries to target Albie, but then Albie stays and everyone blindsides Barry. So walk me through, from your point of view, what happened at the final 8. Why did you decide ultimately to target Barry that round?
Okay, so I know that in Survivor, you're supposed to attempt to make big moves on odd numbers. So I was thinking during the game that I should make a move on an even number. You tried to do this in Surviving Maine and it didn't work out. And when Barry tried to make his move, I realized, okay, this is why it doesn't work out. So Barry approached me and said that he wanted to target Albie. He was pretty confident in this plan. And I just kind of nodded along with it. And I said, yeah, but I had promised Steph and Albie that I was going to be tight with them. So Steph came over to talk to me. And I told her, I don't think I was aware that Barry had told her. She might have said that Barry had told her. But I was playing along with it because this is what I had for information at this time. And I said, hey, Barry's targeting Albie. What do you think about this? And I could tell immediately that she was not feeling it at all. And I was not feeling it at all either. But I wasn't like, I didn't go over to Stephanie and say, we need to target Barry because he's targeting Albie. You know, you don't do that in Survivor. You don't show your cards until you have a good feeling about the situation. Stephanie totally wasn't down with it. I don't know who vocalized first and said, let's do Barry, but we both mutually could tell as we looked at each other that we were not down with this. And we agreed to blindside Barry. And after that, it was all about painting Barry as this evil villain to get the rest of the people to vote Barry out. And then that's what ended up happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everyone was so against each other, green versus blue, at the merge, and then all of a sudden it was just this unanimous blindside against Barry. It was funny. So
I don't want Barry calling the shots. I was the one that I like to call the shots. I don't want Barry
right,
to move.
right. So John asks, had that not happened, so had Barry not gone after Albie, had you not voted Barry out, would you have wanted a final 4 with all blue?
No, I would have wanted Albie, Stephanie, and Angela.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's see. So, were you ever worried when you were going after Barry that round that at final 7, green and pink could team up against the 3 remaining blue, which is ultimately what happened?
No, that was the best blindside in the entire game. I had no clue that Angela and Waylon would try that. After they did it, it made a lot of sense to even the numbers out a little bit across the board. But I had no inkling of their intent to do that, and I don't think Stephanie or Albie or anybody really did either.
Okay. So that happens. Stephanie gets blindsided at final 7. So how are you feeling after that happened? Did you feel like Pink was going to come back and work with you, or did you think that you and Albie were in a bad spot?
I was upset for Steph because I wanted to see Steph go really far. She was part of my original 3 alliance, but I had to adapt and overcome based on what was dealt to me. So immediately after tribal council, I went up to Angela Whalen. I said, that was a great move. That makes sense. Like, bravo. Let's get back to the original game plan. I did not want to try and work with green. I knew that there was no hope for me going with green. So I knew that I had to just accept what they had done, let them know it was a smart play, and let them know that you're still with me because they were the swing. And I needed the swing, and Albie needed the swing. So I believe that Albie attempted to make a play at Whalen in the next round. I was not with that because I wanted to make sure that I had Pink because they were the only people I could work with. I had been targeted by Chris and Damien the entire game in green. So yeah, that was not I was a little frustrated with it, but it was not something that was going to keep me from working with Angela and Waylon.
Okay. So let's see. Angela wanted to know, had Elby left at final 7, does Stephanie make it to the end with you?
Yeah. Yeah. Stephanie and Albie was who I wanted to win the games. Me, Stephanie, or Albie.
Okay. Now I remember at the final 6, while you were voting, that you said you left it up to Pink and you were hoping for the best. So going into that vote, did you assume Pink was with you, or were you still really not sure what was going to happen?
I had a pretty good feeling that Pink was with me because I really sold hard that the entire jury is pretty much green, and we can't have Chris going to the end because Chris is this. I was putting doubts in people's heads about Chris for a long time. I had been calling Chris a very strategic player. He knows the game, blah, 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 blah. So it made sense to get rid of Chris there, and I think that they saw that too. And I think that Angela really had a good bond with me, and Waylon had a good one with Albie as well. So I wasn't real nervous that they weren't going to come back.
Okay. Now the last 2 rounds, was it like a for sure when you got to final 5, like Pink have to be the last 2 that get voted out? So going into final 5, Waylon and Angela had to be voted out no matter what.
Yes, from a strategic point of view, it did.
Yeah.
Depending on who would have won immunity, had Waylon won immunity, I would have targeted Damien. I wouldn't have wanted to go for Angela. I don't know if Albie and Waylon would have advocated or allowed that to happen.
Right.
But I had worked with Angela through the entire swap and merge as sort of, she was the person that I needed to further my game. So I don't think that, I think I would have targeted Damien had Waylon won individual immunity, but it worked out in the way that it needed to.
Yeah. So you end up making it to the final tribal, the last 2 rounds. Waylon and Angela get voted out. I don't think you received. Let me double check. Yeah, you didn't receive any votes the last 2 rounds. They always voted for Damien. Near the end of the game, I know Albie called out Damien for not really wanting to be there. Were you feeling confident going into final tribal that Damien really didn't have a shot?
Yeah, I knew after we took out, when they wanted to take out Damien and we took out Ciara, I believe that's around the time that I learned that Damien was going to pretty much just tell me and everything that he was doing with his game. So it's like, why would I want to get rid of that person? He's going to literally give me all the information that I need about what the other people are doing,
Right.
Even though he doesn't like me really that much. So I'm like, so there's no point really to vote out Damien when you didn't have an idol. So I knew that early that Damien was going to be sort of a drag along vote. So if it wasn't going to be me, Steph, and Albie, I would take Damien to the end probably.
Okay. So how confident were you feeling going into final tribal council?
I thought I had a shot. I definitely botched my final speech. I worded things the way that I shouldn't have worded them. We'll get into that in a minute, but I thought that I thought that I had a decent shot. I think that there were people that respected my game. I think more people respected my game that were knocked out earlier because I feel like I'm really good at that team aspect in the beginning, and people are intimidated by the way that I play a little bit, but they respect that sort of in a way. I thought I had a shot. I also knew that Albie was very personable. He was much more vocal and personable than I was in a social manner, especially when we merged with Green. I'm painted the villain by Green, but Albie's the one that's sitting there laughing around the campfire with you and then stabbing you in the back the next day. I just sat there and stared at you. At least you knew I was coming for you. You know what I mean? So I guess maybe some of these people's morals or ethics are corrupted because at least I was like, not trying to be best buddies and before I backstab somebody, but
Right.
their own.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that before, and I feel like it really just has to do with the people, because sometimes people don't want you to be their friend before you vote them out, and sometimes they do. So
Right.
I think it really just has to do with like who it is.
Yeah.
So did you? Because I know when I made it to Final Tribal Council, I had a whole speech planned, and then I said none of it. So did you have a plan going into your opening speech, and did it actually come out the way that you had planned?
I definitely had a plan, but I was very tired. I was very hungry. I was very cold, and I just ate a bunch of food, and I felt like I was going to shit myself. So I was like, uh, I wasn't really in the best mindset. But my plan originally was to say I had a part in everybody being eliminated except Steph.
Mm-hmm.
But way I worded it is I said everybody's here because of me. And
Right.
the second I said that, I said, "Oh my God, it's all over. Albie's gonna win." The minute I said that, I knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah, that was probably that wasn't the best thing to say.
And
Yeah.
that right there, and I know I told you, I said it on the Surviving Maine reunion show. I told Cameron the reason I didn't vote for you in Surviving Maine is because you took too much credit and didn't give it to anybody else. So I voted for Brandon because you're more personal. I honestly believe that this game was very similar to Surviving Maine in the outcome. You had Angela, who was Jasmine at 4, be told that
Yeah.
she was out. You had the social butterfly Albie win the game, who was you in our game. You had the GOAT, which was Tony and Damien from our game. And then you had someone that was a little bit more strategic and pushy, but not as personal with me and Cameron. Cameron's way more strategic than I am, but it was a very similar breakdown
Yeah.
than compared to the last game that I played.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, now that you say that, because I compared Angela to Jazzy like to a T. Because I think she would have easily won, same as Jazzy, it would have easily
Absolutely.
won.
I wasn't winning that game. I was destined for second place with the strong players that made it down to the final for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. So the other comment that I specific and people have mentioned this during their interviews was when you said that the jury you were asked, are you a hero or a villain? And you said, I'm a hero, the jury is the villains, and I was the hero that took them out. So walk me through why you said that, and do you still agree that you are a hero that took all the villains out?
I wouldn't call them villains, but every single person that I was a part in voting out from the merge on that was on the jury voted for me, attempted to vote for somebody in my alliance, or that's it. You know what I mean? So you're a villain to me because you came after me or you came after somebody that I care about. So I do feel like that I quelled the plans of other people that were trying to make moves against me. Villainous is perceptive. So if somebody is villainous, it's because they came after you. Well, you came after me first. I was a target from green from the beginning of the game. So I mean, to each their own. I also wanted to break down the villainous role that people are saying that I'm playing because if you're in my alliance, I was truthful with you. I was very honest. I was very open. I had your back. So I didn't see myself as a villain in that sense. I can understand why Green would see me that way, but they were also villains towards me. They were trying to plot against me. So, I mean, everybody else, perception is not always reality.
Okay. So looking back on your final travel performance, I know you've already said this, but would you change anything differently to get more votes? Or do you think
Oh,
you could have said anything differently to get more votes?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely wouldn't tell everybody that they're sitting there because of me. You know what I mean? That was the stupidest thing I could have done. I literally didn't vote for somebody in the last game I played because they said that.
Right.
Uh, but I am nervous when I speak in front of people, especially people that you've wronged, and you're also trying to be genuine, but at the same time, you can't be too genuine because you want to appeal to certain players. But yeah, I would definitely change the majority of what I said. Um, but for the most part, I think that I was fairly honest. I also botched the question that Barry had asked about blindsiding him. It was a more of a mutual thing between me and Stephanie. It wasn't like I made the move. It was her and I made the move together.
Hmm.
So again, taking too much credit. Um, but I'm happy with how I played. I'm happy with second place. I mean, I obviously
Yeah,
wanted to win, but the person that was in my alliance won, so I was
right.
happy with it.
Cool. Now you did ultimately get votes from Angela and Caitlin. Caitlin just said, the reason I voted for Justin is because I respected how brutal he was, but how straightforward he was about being brutal. Uh, and then Angela voted for you. She said her reason why the other night, and I don't remember. Did you?
She felt that I had made more out there moves, like ones that people could see.
Yeah, and
So,
you two were really close, as you've said,
mhm.
throughout the game anyway. So kind of
Yeah,
expected, I guess, that she would cast her vote for you
yeah,
as
we
well.
built a really good bond during that endurance challenge. She was having a really hard time, and I was like right there, like beside her, like pushing her through it, and she really like appreciated that, and we had a really tight bond
Yeah,
after that.
cool. So in general, not just Final Tribal Council, but just in general, do you have any regrets or is there anything you'd change about the way you played?
I said it in my final tribal council speech. I wish I would have been a little bit more personable with Green. I still don't think I would have pulled over their boats just because of the way I play. Um, but for the most part, no. I had the back of the people, the backs of the people that I said I would have their backs, and I tried to screw over in the most unique ways possible the people that didn't have my back. So, no, I'm good with how I did it. Everybody likes to see somebody get blindsided or whatever, like that's how you keep these people watching. So if you do heroes versus villains, I've got no problem being on the villain side if you want to cast me.
You would someone else said that, and you would be the only one from this season who I would categorize as a villain. Um, yeah, so if I was to do that theme, you would be first on the list because you'd be the only one on the list. um, so what did you learn playing a second time?
Oh, I just wanted to. We didn't even talk about Caitlyn's thing that she said.
Oh, okay.
Being
Yeah, we can
about
go
being
back to that.
straightforward. There's certain times in Survivor where you can be straightforward and you can straight up say something because you are in the right side of the numbers and you have power. Um, when you are playing chess, the only thing you verbalize is checkmate. You know what I mean? So when I was in certain situations, I felt like I could speak. I felt like I could say something like I could say something about somebody right in front of them, and I didn't care what they thought. You know what I mean? And then there's other times where it's like, okay, this is getting a little dicey. I probably should be a little more quiet about this, and then do this in secret. But yeah, I am very straightforward at certain times. I'm very open about how I feel. I put my cards on the table when I can, and then when I don't need to, I don't.
Yeah.
So I
I feel like
appreciate
it
you
was
both.
a I feel like it was a good mix between Damien telling the person he's voting for every round that he's voting for them and someone who just straight up lies and sends everyone to the jury with a bitter taste in their mouth. So I feel like you had a good mix of like the two.
Yeah, and everything that I vote, everything that I say out loud for people to hear might not necessarily be true. I may be
Right.
planting, I may just be planting seeds. Like with Caitlyn, I was told that by Steph, or not Steph, Sarah. Sarah's like, "Oh, that Caitlyn chick, she's super cool. Like, look at her leg tattoo. She's got like a mountain. Like, she's so chill. I'd love to work with her." And I was like, "Well, she's going to be somebody that I target if we make it to merge." You know what I
Right.
mean? So I started like throwing her name out right around merge. I was like, okay, well, she's got to go. And unfortunately, she ended up being medevac out, but she was somebody that I was looking to definitely target.
hmm
She was a strong player. It was very clear.
Yeah. Um so you've played two games at this point. If you played again, would you change anything about the way you play, or would you play the same way?
So do I strategically answer this question or do I tell the honest truth? I don't know. This game was for charity, so I did play it differently. I'll just say that. But
Okay.
especially the end game, I
Yeah.
probably would have changed things a little bit.
Okay.
Well,
Um,
not this game, but in the next game, I probably play it a little bit differently towards the end.
okay. So I have a few rapid fire questions. Same ones that I've asked everyone else. So, who was your closest ally throughout the game?
Albie,
Who was a person you wish you had met in the game or could have worked with more?
Alan.
Favorite challenge that you get to participate in?
I liked the water challenge, even though the cups started to break because I was squeezing them too tightly. I really liked that challenge because it was like I was fresh, I felt good. Um,
Yeah, that
we
was
were
the
building
first.
that
That was the first challenge, I think.
second or first.
Second,
Yep.
yeah.
And yeah, the first one was the one where we ran.
Right. Were you the
And
runner? I
somehow,
can't
yeah, I
remember.
was a runner. Somehow I didn't lose terribly. I was like, oh man, I got to run against Logan and Alan, who's probably 175 pounds soaking wet. I'm
Right.
215. So I thought I was going to be way behind in that, but I do jog often, so it didn't end up too badly. But yeah, the water challenge I liked the best because we were fresh. The sun was shining. I felt like I was outdoors, and Steph told me she wanted to work with me. So that was my first alley in the game. So I love that challenge, and it just brings back really good like vibes.
Cool. What was your favorite behind the scenes moment? So not challenge and not tribal council, just something random that happened over the
I
weekend.
don't want to out anybody, and I don't know if anybody else has talked about it in their interview. Night one, Liz took a piss,
Yes, they've already
and
said this, so yes, you
went,
can talk about it.
she went in the woods, took a piss, brought her biodegradable toilet paper to the fire while we were all standing in a circle, and she threw the toilet paper into the fire with the smoke rising around us from her toilet paper that she had used. And we were all kind of just like, did that really just happen? And it did, but that was definitely a very interesting and hilarious moment for all of us, for sure. It
Yeah,
also probably solidified Liz as being somebody that wouldn't be around for very long.
yeah.
um,
Yeah, John
but
and
yeah, that
Stephanie are reacting to that story.
yeah, that was like the funniest moment. But the probably the most enjoyable moment was like the first night we all were laying underneath the tent, just kind of talking about our lives and having pretty, deep conversations about certain random topics, just a little bit about everything. And it was really nice to just talk about people outside while sleeping on the ground and having that campfire type experience. I
Awesome.
was very strategic with how I slept too. I slept at the head of it was Albie, Stephanie, Barry, Liz. So I made sure my feet were down where Liz's head was. And then I was head to head with Albie and Steph. And then I had John on my other side. So I was trying to be in the middle of everything. So
Nice.
yeah, I made really good bonds that night with people. And I think that everybody else bonded really well too. Well, Liz and Jackie just fell asleep, but the rest of
Hmm.
us were tight.
That's interesting because they say I know a few people like on the actual show Survivor. Sometimes they show the sleeping arrangements and
It's
how
important.
important it is and how you should look into it. And so it's interesting. You're the first person that's brought up that you thought about how you were going to sleep that night.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you did not follow me, Cam, and Jazzy and not sleep the first night because not a good idea.
No, no.
So last one was would you play again?
Absolutely, I'll play again. I'll get second place every day. I'll do it over and over again. I don't think I can get a 9, 11, 10 person jury to want people to like me, but I definitely will play.
Nice. What advice would you have for anyone playing in the future?
Have fun with it, like it's a game. It's not who you really are. Like you can be who you want to be and like do what you want to do. And I don't know, like it's just fun. Like I get off to like making moves against people. Like I do. I really do. I love the drama of it. I look at people like chess pieces, which is probably why I'm like deemed a villain, but
Yeah.
that's why we're all there. And they look at me the same way. So just go in and have fun with it and come up with something unique and make bonds with people that you want to make bonds with and then screw over the people that you want to screw over. You mean?
Nice. That is very different than the advice literally everyone else gave. So I love
Sure.
it.
I'm sure it is.
So lastly, obviously this was a charity event. So what charity were you playing for and why did you end up choosing them?
I played for the Bangor Humane Society. First off, there was a ton of awesome charities there. A lot of intimate personal relationships, which I felt were very special that some people had. Mine was with the Bangor Humane Society, which is a local homeless shelter, local animal shelter that takes care of unwanted animals that were neglected for financial reasons or their owners had health issues, and they house them there. They train them back if they have any sort of behavioral issues, and then they actually are very thorough with finding them good households. Like they make sure that they inspect the houses that they're going to and whatnot. And during COVID, when I applied and signed up, there were a lot of animals over there. The shelter was full because people couldn't take care of them. They were losing their jobs, etc. So that was why I wanted to play for them. I was thinking about having a sad sob story that I told you about when I applied about finding like kittens on the side of the road and blah 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 blah. Try to get people on my side. But I was like, I can't quite cross that line yet.
Yeah, that might have been a little
Yeah,
iffy of a
that was a little
decision.
too shady and questionable.
Yeah. You can't always be a villain. So any last words about your experience playing the game before we end this?
First off, I think that it's really, really weird that this game was only a month ago. I feel like this was like years ago. Like I feel
Yeah.
like Surviving Maine was more recent than this. Like it's very weird this time. I don't know if it's because the second time that I played or if it's because I've been so
Yeah.
busy.
Hmm.
But that's one weird thing. But I really enjoyed it. I think you did a fantastic job. I think that the cast was fantastic. I think there was a good mix of people and from different walks of life and different interest groups and all of that. So it was a very authentic experience. I enjoyed all the challenges except for the hatchet one. Um, and I was really thankful that we had great weather. But yeah, no, it was a great time. It's what, you kept me believing in these live reality games and wanting to play again with the way that you hosted it and the people that were there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being a part of it. I'm glad you were able to, and I'm glad you, uh, gave me a chance applying for the first season. Um, Everyone that is listening, make sure you follow Live Reality Games on YouTube and Facebook. They have coverage of a lot of different games around the country, and they post when applications are out for all those games as well. Make sure you follow Kind of Survive on Facebook and Instagram. We will have applications coming out for 2022 on November 1st. So you'll be able to apply to be in our next season, which will be happening June 22nd through 26th. It's going to be a 5-day game instead of 4. So it is going to be longer next year. And with that, thank you for listening. This is going to be our last post game interview. So thank you to Live Reality Games again for giving us this platform to do our post game interviews. And we will see you next year.